What are the top 5 easiest Nepenthes to grow? I'm Damon here at California Carnivores, and today I'm going to rattle through our top 5 easiest Nepenthes, or tropical pitcher plants, to grow for the beginner. Number 5 is Nepenthes ventricosa red by Loweye. This is a fantastic little plant. Because of the ventricosa in there, it will make red, waxy pitchers that resemble Nepenthes loweye, which is a very famous Nepenthes for making pitchers that are toilet-shaped. In Borneo, where they grow, there's a little tree shrew that comes to eat a white exudate off the underside of the lid and then poops in the pitcher while it's there. And although that's kind of gross, most plants are actually living off poop and compost in the soil, if you think about it. And so this clever little plant has devised a way of making the shrew do all the running around and collecting of bugs for it, and then is benefiting from its poop into the pitcher. Those pitchers are really beautiful and unique looking in the Nepenthes genus, and Nepenthes loweye itself is very difficult to grow, requiring very specific temperatures and high humidity, never getting too warm and never getting too cold. But if you want a plant that looks just like that, that's actually easy to grow, that's why we're recommending this little guy. Our number 4 is going to be Rebecca Soper. This is another hybrid. I believe it's Nepenthes ventricosa by Alba. I think that's true. We'll look it up. This is another super easy hybrid. What's nice about this is it has these dark red chocolatey pitchers. The leaves themselves, or the petiole, are also dark red. And so this is a nice colorful plant, also extremely easy to grow, and a little bit more interesting than some of the others. Number 3, although it isn't the most fantastic looking Nepenthes in the whole world as far as like, there's definitely more interesting plants out there. But if you're looking for a super easy beginning plant to fill up a windowsill, I love this little Ventrata by Aleda. Sometimes you'll see this plant sold as Aleda as well. Unfortunately, in horticulture, it's gotten a little muddled up, and so you see both those names on there. Because of the ventricosa, again, it'll have those red waxy pitchers, so that's really neat and nice. There are more elongated pitchers, probably like 4 to 5 inches tall at maximum, with a nice little narrow waist when it gets bigger. Right here, you can't see very much of that, but as it gets bigger, you will see that. It's also a very forgiving plant. When it comes down to ease of growth, really often what you're talking about is how forgiving is that plant. Does it need very rigid, specific conditions, or will it kind of grow anywhere, very adaptable? And that's really what these 5 we're talking about are, is they're really adaptable plants. And if you don't get everything just right, it'll still look great, it'll still pitcher for you. And if you're looking for more information on how to grow these guys, go surf into the rest of our videos, because we've done many videos about how to grow Nepenthes. Where's my number 2? Oh, my number 2 is this big one right here. So number 2 is Nepenthes ventricosa. Whoa! There went number 1. Just kidding. That was just a little orchid. It's fine. We'll pick them up later. Nepenthes ventricosa is a super easy species. It was in a couple of the hybrids, actually all 3 of the hybrids that we just mentioned before. And so this is the pure species. It has the beautiful red waxy pitchers that I've been talking about this whole video. This really beautiful little ridged peristome. There's just something so charming and wonderful about Nepenthes ventricosa. And since we're talking about easy plants for the beginner, this was actually the second Nepenthes that I ever got. And not just ventricosa, but this specific plant I got when I was 12 years old from Peter. I had grown, maybe I was 13, because I know I had grown Sarracenia, Cape Sundaes, and flytraps for a couple of years before I tried the Nepenthes. The Nepenthes are a little bit harder to grow because they need to be indoors. And I always say that they're easy orchid level of care, so not to say that it can't be done. But as like a very thoughtful little 13-year-old Damon, trying not to kill things, and I know a lot of you feel the same way about it. You don't want to buy a plant that you can't take care of and feel bad about killing it. So I was looking for something really easy to grow, and I got this ventricosa. It's so funny because this plant is over 30 years old, but it's not very big because we've cut it back numerous times. We just cut it back really hard to move. So size and age in a plant, they're not always the exact same thing, which is so interesting. You can see the transition here too. These are the lower pitchers. Tropical pitcher plants have two different types of pitchers. Lower pitchers produce lower down on the plant like this, on these basal rosettes that we call these. And then when it vines, it'll make upper pitchers, which are often completely different. You can see how much lighter that one is. And they often present from the back. The tendril presents from the back. And this is a flower bed. So they also have flowers. Most people don't grow them for the flowers. They're kind of weird looking, smelly little things. So you can always trim that off. And if you do, you'll get more pitchers more quickly. Anyways, Nepenthes ventricosa, very easy plant. And here's the proof, because we've been growing it for 30 years. If there's a plant that's even easier than ventricosa, it has to be Nepenthes sanguinea. Sanguinea, this is a baby plant, but sanguinea can get pitchers, I would say, like up to 6 to 8 inches tall. So, something like that. The clone that is most often sold is this nice orangey, bronzy clone. That's mostly what we sell here. There are red clones, chocolatey clones that can be harder to get, but this orangey clone, very easily found in horticulture. And this is just a very forgiving, easy plant. An example I always like to talk about is we used to get our peat moss and perlite from a local soil company here in town. And, one day I was in there telling them what I do. I tell everybody what I do. And like, why are you buying all this peat moss and all this perlite? And I said, oh, well, I have a carnivorous plant nursery. And they said, oh, well, we'd like to grow one of those in our little showroom. And so I brought them a little sanguinea just like this. And they put it on a north window in their very dark, kind of rough and tumble little sale area, their little office. Now, normally, we would recommend at least 2 to 3 hours of direct sun to grow Nepenthes well and have it continue to pitcher. These are the pitchers. But they put it on this north window where it was almost not getting any direct sun. And I was like, I don't know if that's going to work. And I kept visiting and visiting and visiting. And I watched with amazement as this plant just kept making bigger and bigger pitchers. And it was growing, vining throughout their whole window with all these other pitchers. And they were cutting it back and rooting it. And these were people, they're selling soil, but they're not having a ton of plant experience. Actually, they're probably not growing a lot of orchids at home. So, because they're like driving tractors around kind of people mostly. Anyways, they did really super well with it. And so that's always stuck out with me. And I always think, if you're trying like a nice little easy plant that's going to work for almost anybody, Nepenthes sanguinea has to be the one. So those are my top 5 specific tropical pitcher plants to try out if you're just getting started. But I want to talk a little bit about all the other hybrids that you'll find on our webpage and actually how easy to grow those are as well. So first off, since I assume you're watching this video, you're not a deep planty person yet, let's just talk quickly about the difference between a species and a hybrid. So a species is a plant that exists in the wild and is self-replicating. So a Nepenthes ventricosa is growing in the Philippines, and it's crossing with other Nepenthes ventricosas to make pure ventricosas, and that's just been happening for thousands of years, slowly evolving and changing. So that's a species. Sometimes in the wild, you'll have 2 species growing together, and they might cross together and create a hybrid. When it happens in the wild, we call that a natural hybrid because it's happening naturally just out of the blue. Mostly the point of species is to cross with other species so that they can keep continuing their species. But just because things accidentally happen, and biology is a messy world, sometimes the pollen of this one will get on the pollen of that one, and they'll find these plants existing in the wild, just kind of doing their little thing. In horticulture, we can also do that here. And so I play the part of the weird little bug around here, and I'll take pollen from one flower and put it on another flower, and I'm usually crossing 2 species together to make a pure species if I can. That's always our preference around here. But if we don't have that, we'll make hybrids. And hybrids, although They don't exist in the wild, and some people really have a hang up about that. Like they want to grow pure species. I always joke that that's a new hobby thing, kind of thing. Because if you're really been doing something for a long time, like we have, eventually you do have most of the species that you want, and you want to keep collecting and keep getting new interesting things. And that's where the hybrids come in. Another nice thing about them is they're extremely easy to grow, especially compared to the pure species. So a lot of things like Nepenthes lowii, Aristolochioides, Raja, Velosa, Edwardziana. I know you guys are looking at those pictures on the line and just drooling over those and wishing that you had those. Well, I hate to break your heart, but those will require very specific conditions, either in a terrarium or a greenhouse, conditions that sometimes people aren't able to provide. What's nice about the hybrids is even if you cross like a Nepenthes edwardziana with a ventricosa, which we've sold here, those will be much easier to grow and accessible to a hobbyist. And so, although it's not the exact species and it doesn't exist on some mountain somewhere, which is cool, and we like that too, the hybrids are often so much more rewarding to grow. We call that hybrid vigor. I'm not sure anybody really understands exactly why, except for there is a tendency when there's something, two things are more genetically separate, that always kind of boosts things along when you cross them together. So this Boschiana by lowii, both Boschiana is a relatively easy species, but still probably a medium species to grow. And lowii is probably one of the harder species to grow. But when you cross those together, you get this really beautiful, easy to grow plant. You can tell a hybrid by the X in the name always. So if you see that little X in the middle, that means that we've crossed Boschiana by lowii. That's how you read that. This is Nepenthes Boschiana by lowii. So if you see an X in there or a few X's in there, that means you're dealing with a hybrid and you're totally okay to order that plant. I hope this clears up some of your, nerves about ordering your very first tropical pitcher plant and inspires you to do it, because many people are growing these on their sunny windowsills or in their Amazon cases, and they're not killing themselves to do it. And so you can totally grow a tropical pitcher plant.